And therefore, when you look at Manu Samhita or the Vedas from that perspective, that they are all centered around actually how to elevate a person in spiritual life, then the whole perspective changes. The question then comes, if the Vedas are centered around, if the goal of the Vedas is to spiritually elevate a person, why does it give so much of material incentives? You worshipping this Devata, giving this benefit, worshipping that Devata, giving this benefit, and all those kind of things. Why is the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas so vastly given? That is because the Vedas, while their central goal is to elevate one spiritually, they also say, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you have to starve, you have to suffer, you have to, whatever problems come in life, you have to simply go on suffering. No. There are, the Vedas say, take care of these things, in just ensure that these things don't trouble you, and focus on spiritual life. So, people will have desires for artha and kama. Fact is, even though the goal of life is getting liberated from the cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age, still there will be desire for artha and kama which cannot be wiped out immediately. All at one shot, you cannot, overnight, you cannot become free from desires of kama and artha. So the Vedas are saying, okay, desires will be there, we understand. Therefore, in a restricted way, you fulfill them, but that's not the goal of life. Don't give it so much importance. So under some little bit of restriction, once in a while, you take care of it, but maximum of rest of the time, you focus on spiritual life. And that is how the Vedas give so much restriction. With restrictions and with austerities, they say, okay, satisfy your desires, so that simultaneously your spiritual elevation is also taken care. If we engage in only artha and kama, without taking the support of dharma, then what happens is, we will get degraded to lower species of life. Next birth, we'll have to take birth as an animal or a plant or something like that. But if we engage in artha and kama, following the codes of dharma, what happens is, in the code of dharma, when you are enjoying artha and kama, you also have to sacrifice. You have to give in dana. You have to undergo tapasya. Yajna, dana, tapa, kriya. These three things are essential for everybody who follows the Sanatana Dharma. So, yajna, dana, tapasya, these things are woven intricately in such a way into this society, into the Sanatana Dharmic society, that every person is obligated to do these things. So therefore, what happens is, even if there is artha and kama, but that is centered around yajna, dana, and tapasya. So by following the path of dana, what happens is, you got artha, but entire artha you cannot use for kama. Something you have to give away. Dana, if you have to give, you have to be renounced. You have to develop vairagya. If you are too much attached, then you cannot give dana. But dana is essential, it is compulsory. So what happens is, by force one will develop vairagya. And that vairagya will aid one's tapasya. Whenever we engage in kama, there is some tapasya involved. So that tapasya, what it will do? It will help us gradually understand I am not the body. So when a person, even if he has to, the lowest person in ignorance, tamoguna also, if he has to engage in meat eating, then what happens? He has to take some tapasya. What is the tapasya? For 1 month he cannot eat meat. Only one day in a month on Amavasya he can eat meat. Tapasya is involved. So he has to restrain his senses, he has to restrain his mind. Mind is demanding, body is demanding, I want meat. But he has to restrain, no, I cannot eat meat. So what happens? It is aiding him to understand he is not his mind, he is not his body. And not only that, on the day of when the animal is being sacrificed, he has to chant some mantras into the ear of the animal being sacrificed, saying that in your next janma, I am giving you the right to kill me. So first time he chants a mantra, second time, third time, somewhere light will start glowing. What am I saying? So many animals I'm giving them every month I'm giving somebody or the other, right? You kill me in the next life, you kill me in the next life. What is this that I'm doing? Somewhere realization will come and the person will stop that activity altogether. So he goes to the next higher level. Like this, gradually give knowledge, give vairagya, give tapasya, so that gradually he can elevate himself. This is the whole purpose, the whole goal of the Vedas. They are giving, the whole goal is to advance spiritually. But along with that, you have got some desires. Okay, you satisfy them also and elevate yourself. That's the purpose of the Vedas. Now, modern day people, they don't understand this purpose. They take only, this is talking about Artha and Kama. So, Vedas are meant only for Artha and Kama. And if Vedas are meant only for Artha and Kama, then what is the meaning of that? It's meaningless. You can as well get Artha and Kama without Vedas. That is where the people go wrong. So, another aspect of the Manu Samhita and the Vedas is that they talk about tapasya, they talk about dana, and they talk about yajnas. Saha yajnaha prajaha srishtva purovacha prajapatihi. Prajapati means Lord Brahma. Saha yajnaha, along with the yajnas, prajaha srishtva, all the human beings he created. Brahma created all of them. That means Brahma created the Manu. Brahma created Manu along with yajnas. And he said, Saha yajnaha prajaha srishtva purovacha prajapatihi. Anena prasavishyadvamesha vosvishta kama dhok. By this, you may prosper. By performing these yajnas, you will prosper. And you will be able to satisfy all your desires. And by performing the yajnas, what happens? By that, Devan Bhavayantanena, by performing these yajnas, you satisfy all the devatas, because devatas are carrying out the universal affairs. They are ensuring enough sunlight, enough rains, enough water in the rivers, the seasons coming and going in a particular sequence. All these things are taken care by the devatas. So therefore, you satisfy the devatas, you express your gratitude to the devatas, and te deva bhavayantu vaha, and devatas being pleased with the yajnas you are performing, they will ensure that all your requirements are taken care. And in this way, parasparam bhavayantaha, by satisfying each other, both of you live in harmony. This way we can live in harmony with nature and with the universe around us. This is the design of this universe. Now, when we perform yajnas, in every yajna, the yajnapati is ultimately Vishnu. Therefore, because the yajnas are compulsory for everyone, whether one is a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, everybody has to perform yajnas. Even sannyasis are not exempt from performing yajnas. Grihasthas have one particular type of yajna to perform. Brahmacharis have another type of yajnas to perform. Sannyasis have a different kind of yajna to perform. But everybody has to perform yajnas. And by performing that yajna, what happens is, ultimately the yajnapati of every yajna is Lord Vishnu. When a person goes on performing yajnas, gradually he will understand that, every yajnapati, I am performing yajna to please Ganesha, I am performing yajna to please Lord Shiva, I am performing yajna to please Indra, I am performing yajna to please Somadeva, etc., etc. I am performing so many yajnas. But in all of them, common yajnapati is Vishnu. Therefore, the gradual realization will come. Ultimately, all the yajnas are meant to please Lord Vishnu. Therefore, the devotion to Vishnu and the understanding that Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead will become firmly entrenched in the heart. And so this way, gradually the person can develop his devotional service to Vishnu also. Of course, when we say gradual development, it may not be in one lifetime. It may be over several lifetimes. But then the path is chalked out. As long as you are following the Dharma Shastras, then your elevation is gradually getting ensured. You have to strictly follow.